USS Enterprise was the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier ever placed into active service. From the 1960s until the early 2010s, she became one of the strongest symbols of the U.S. Navy. This giant warship took part in major events across the world and left a deep mark on history. Today, we are exploring the story of USS Enterprise, a carrier whose legend never really faded. USS Enterprise was built to fight. Over more than 50 years, she played key roles in battles and international crises tied to American interests. To understand why she was created, we need to go back to 1945 and look at the world that shaped her birth. In 1945, the atomic bomb shocked the planet. The U.S. military believed the power shown at Hiroshima and Nagasaki gave America an unmatched position. Leaders in Washington felt that no nation would dare challenge the United States after seeing that destruction. At the same time, the world was exhausted from war and wanted to believe another total war would never return. In those early years, Washington also hoped cooperation with Moscow could continue like it had during World War II. Because of this belief in nuclear power, the U.S. military placed heavy focus on long-range bombers that could deliver nuclear weapons. In 1947, the U.S. Air Force became its own branch, separate from the Army. Its strongest arm was Strategic Air Command, known as SAC, which controlled nuclear bomb forces and gained most of the defense budget. The U.S. Navy did not like this. Naval planners wanted new large aircraft carriers that could operate aircraft designed for nuclear strike missions, partly as a way to compete with SAC. But the Pentagon mostly sided with the Air Force. Budget cuts followed, and by 1950 the number of large aircraft carriers had dropped to 7. Then the Korean War began, and this turned out to be a major moment for the Navy. Carrier aircraft became vital. They helped stop disaster at Pusan. They also proved their worth during the counterattack and the Incheon landing. During the entire Korean War, SAC's very expensive B-36 bombers did not fly a single combat mission. That was a powerful lesson. The balance was shifting back toward the Navy. This was also the beginning of a new era, the Cold War. Across many former colonies, communist rebellions and independence movements were breaking out. The Soviet Navy started building hundreds of submarines to threaten global sea lanes. Nuclear weapons could not solve these kinds of problems. And in 1953, the Soviet Union ended America's monopoly on atomic weapons. The U.S. could no longer rely on nuclear fear alone. It needed strong conventional forces again. Sea power returned as a key part of world strategy. The Navy had already been thinking ahead. Since 1946, it had been working on nuclear propulsion for carriers. Navy planners even considered putting nuclear reactors into the Forrestal-class carriers before the first one was laid down in 1952. But that dream had to wait. It was not until Congress approved construction in 1957 that the project became real. USS Enterprise was laid down on February 4, 1958. She was launched on September 24, 1960, and she was commissioned on November 25, 1961. At first, the Navy wanted 6 ships of the Enterprise class, but the cost was enormous. Washington canceled the other 5, leaving Enterprise as a one-of-a-kind ship. When she entered service, her pennant number began with CVN. The letter N meant nuclear, and A meant assault. The letters C and V did not come from the word carrier. C came from cruiser, and V came from voler, a French word that means to fly. This is why the U.S. carrier naming style had an interesting similarity to how Russia described aircraft carrying cruisers. Enterprise was not the first ship to carry that famous name. Before the nuclear carrier, 7 other U.S. Navy ships had been called Enterprise. The 7th one was legendary. It was the 25 500-ton Yorktown-class carrier USS Enterprise, a hero of World War II. Sailors called her Big E. The new Enterprise inherited both the name and the nickname, carrying that legacy forward. When USS Enterprise was commissioned, she was the largest warship ever built. Even today, she still holds the record as the longest ship in U.S. Navy history. Her power came from 8 A-2W pressurized water nuclear reactors fueled by highly enriched uranium-235. The ship had 4 propulsion plants. Each plant had 2 reactors, and each plant drove one of the 4 shafts with a large 5-blade propeller. Nuclear power brought huge advantages. The carrier no longer needed large storage areas for diesel fuel. That freed space for more aviation fuel and more weapons for aircraft. She could travel about 200,000 nautical miles at 30 knots without refueling. That range gave the Navy a much stronger ability to project power far from home. Enterprise also had serious protection. She used an aluminum belt armor about 20 centimeters thick, which was similar in effect to 10 centimeters of rolled steel armor. The flight deck, hangar, magazines, and reactor areas were armored as well. Her flight deck was 331.6 meters long and 76.8 meters wide, with more than 20,000 square meters of area. She had 4 90-meter C-13 Mod 1 catapults. 2 were on the bow and 2 were on the angled deck. These could launch a 36-ton aircraft to around 300 kilometers per hour in only 76 meters. The landing area was 237.7 meters long. The hangar was 223 meters long, 29 meters wide, and 7.62 meters high. Its floor space was about 20,100 square meters. Because of this, Enterprise could carry more than 90 aircraft, though a normal mission load was closer to 60. 4 elevators, each about 26 by 16 meters and able to lift 45 tons, moved aircraft between the hangar and the flight deck. The ship carried massive supplies. She could hold about 363,000 liters of aviation gasoline, 9,382,000 liters of jet fuel, and around 1,800 tons of ammunition. That allowed her to run air operations for roughly 12 days without replenishment. Quick-use ammunition was kept in armored containers and moved on sleds so aircraft could be rearmed fast on the flight deck. Early in design, the Navy wanted to equip Enterprise with the RIM-2 Terrier air defense missile system, but the rising cost forced the Navy to drop that plan. Later in 1967, 2 octuple Mk-29 launchers for the RIM-7 Sea Sparrow were added. A third launcher was installed during a refit in 1970 to 1971. During the 1979 to 1982 refit, the carrier received 3 Mach 15 Phalanx close-in weapon systems. One of those was later replaced with 2 21-cell RIM-116 ram launchers. Enterprise also carried a radar system called ScanFAR. It was a phased array radar that could track multiple targets better than older rotating radar antennas. It also needed less maintenance. According to Jane's Fighting Ships 2004 to 2005, her crew size was around 5,900 people. The ship was 342.3 meters long, with a beam of 40.5 meters and a draft of 11.9 meters. Standard displacement was about 75,700 tons, and fully loaded displacement was about 89,600 tons. Her 8 Westinghouse A2W reactors, rated at 35,000 horsepower each, gave her a top speed of about 33 knots. Her first major crisis came in 1962, during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Thankfully, that confrontation ended without turning into total war, but the carrier became a major threat in Soviet eyes. The Soviet Navy treated her like a priority target. On February 13, 1963, a Soviet Tu-142 began tracking Enterprise near the Azores. This long chase game continued through the entire Cold War. In 1964, Enterprise joined a special mission with the nuclear cruisers USS Long Beach and USS Bainbridge. The operation was called Sea Orbit. It was an around-the-world cruise by Task Force 1 meant to show the strength of the U.S. nuclear fleet. They traveled about 30,565 nautical miles, or around 56,600 kilometers. During the 65-day voyage, the ships never refueled once. In Vietnam, Enterprise proved her combat value. In 1965, she carried out her first battle mission offshore and launched her first strike sorties. Her A-4 Skyhawks opened hard, flying 125 strike sorties and dropping 125 tons of bombs on North Vietnamese targets. Only 9 days later, the daily strike rate rose to 165 sorties. Then, disaster struck. On January 14, 1969, an aircraft start unit overheated a rocket load on a parked F-4 Phantom II. This caused an explosion that triggered a chain reaction across the flight deck. In the chaos, 15 aircraft were destroyed. 27 sailors died. 314 were injured. The blast tore a massive hole in the center of the deck. Enterprise sailed to Pearl Harbor for repairs and returned to sea on March 5, 1969. Until 1973, Enterprise was sent away from Vietnam only 3 times. She went twice to Korean waters. This happened after North Korea captured the U.S. Intelligence ship USS Pueblo in 1968, and after North Korea shot down an EC-121 Warning Star in 1969. She was also sent to the Bay of Bengal during the Indo-Pakistani War of 1971. At that time, the Indian Navy blockaded eastern Pakistan, now Bangladesh. The U.S. sent Enterprise to signal political support for Pakistan and show that Washington did not accept the blockade. After Vietnam, Enterprise returned to combat in the Persian Gulf in 1988. During Operation Earnest Will, she escorted tankers against Iranian and Iraqi threats. She also joined Operation Praying Mantis after the frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts struck a mine. Aircraft from Enterprise helped sink one Iranian corvette and badly damage another. In 2001, Enterprise again went to war. During the first 3 weeks of the Afghanistan conflict, her aircraft flew more than 700 sorties and dropped about 360 tons of bombs against Taliban forces. Over time, Enterprise became more than a warship. She became part of popular culture. Many people hear the name USS Enterprise and think of the famous Star Trek starship. Early in development, the creators planned to name that ship Yorktown, but they realized Enterprise symbolized the nuclear era and carried a stronger meaning, so they chose Enterprise instead. In 1986, the film Top Gun also made Enterprise part of its story, with Tom Cruise, the F-14 Tomcat, and the carrier itself becoming major stars. Enterprise was inactivated in 2012 after more than 50 years of service. She was officially decommissioned on February 3, 2017. The first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier to be commissioned also became the first of its kind to be decommissioned. The Navy chose to continue the name again, planning a new USS Enterprise within the Gerald R. Ford class. But the 8th ship to carry the name Enterprise will always be remembered as a legend. Thanks for watching our video. Please subscribe to our channel and click the bell button so you do not miss future uploads. You can also hit the join button to support our work. And as always, we truly appreciate your likes, comments, and shares.